Let the midnight special shine a light on me. Let the midnight special shed a light on me. Wee! That was a fun stream. That was a fun stream to watch. That was fun. It was fun. So fun. It's fun to be in the crosshairs of Paul's ego every so often. Not always, but it's fun. It's actually no, that's a lie. It's always fun. I would be lying if I said it wasn't always at least mildly entertaining. Although I try not to stay in them for very preaching something at somebody, and I don't like to feel like I'm um, just pissing somebody off if I'm not specifically like trying to do that. You know what I mean? Like it's one thing if you've gotten into an argument with somebody who's like bigoted or just kind of dumb or whatever, and you're trying to make that person mad, you're trying to poke at them a little bit. But I try not to do that sort of thing with Paul. Although sometimes I definitely do. I remember um, we had this disagreement about Foucault because I just I don't know. I think I'd heard the name mentioned before, but I didn't know it was pronounced like that, so it didn't occur to me to connect them until I started trying to look it up. But um, that was probably the last time I can think of when I um, went into the okay. I'm kind of trolling a little bit now too, but I felt like that was after quite a bit of like very heated back and forth. So I feel like a bit of I don't know, a bit of poking and prodding at the end of an exchange like that is to be expected, I think. But I try not to like have them go there instantly, you know. And I felt like the conversation I had with Paul was fun, even if I feel like he doesn't. Um, I don't know. I sort of feel sometimes like he um, characterizes my position kind of unfavorably. He said, like dams are good, Paul's ego. It's like I didn't say dams are good. I said that some dams seem to have like really what I was trying to say, and you can only say so much with that sort of character limit, and so it affects the entire tone and timbre of what you're saying, right? But um, what I was trying to say in more words was that some dams obviously cause damage to the environment. A lot of dams cause damage to the environment as a function of their design, um, and some dams seem to not harm the environment. I'm not making the argument that there's some sort of blessing for the environment that they exist within, but it does seem like there are certain dams that don't kill everything. You know what I mean? That don't kill everything downstream, that don't make the area upstream horrible to be in or whatever. Like it doesn't, swamp it out. Like at least in the area that I grew up in the area that I know about the most hydropower in, which would be the like the TVA's jurisdiction, so the Tennessee River Valley. The dams there seem to have a I don't know, like a mundane sort of effect on the wildlife. It doesn't seem like it's doing much in either direction. I would make the argument that in some ways it creates more habit, right? It 100% creates more aquatic habitat because you're taking what was once a river that was like 100 feet wide and yeah, probably like 100 feet wide, and you're making it like a couple of thousand feet wide, right? And so that's making way more aquatic habitat, and it does sort of like shrink the amount of terrestrial habitat you have, but I was talking about this the other day. There's way more if you're talking about inland waterways, right? there's way more land inland than there is water inland. So if you expand aquatic environment a little bit, or I'm sorry, if you expand aquatic environments by, say, 10 times, you're not decreasing terrestrial environment by 10 times. You might be increasing it by 10% in some areas, you might be increasing it by 20%. It just depends on the amount of like population density in the area that whatever dam you're talking about is built in. It just depends on that. Um, that is what affects the amount of terrestrial habitat that's actually lost in comparison with the aquatic habitat that's gained. Bro, think he smart, dude. Um, I really think that's hilarious and ironic because like if you're gonna call somebody pretentious and you're gonna say that they like think that they're super smart, at least do yourself the favor of using correct grammar and punctuation. At least don't make yourself seem like a bit like a way bigger idiot than the person you're calling a dumbass. Um, just out of the gate. You know what I mean? Just some advice for the future. Disappointing results. You skibbities. You skibbities are worthless in an internet chat. A lot of you are retarded. I'm just gonna keep talking to myself. Anyway, so really my argument was not dams are great for the environment. The argument is that dams don't, in my opinion, and from what I can tell, and I'm willing to be wrong on this one because, like I said in the chat, like I'm totally fine with doing solar too. Like I just want us to move away from gasoline and fossil fuels in general. I'm pretty fine with doing that in any of a number of ways. I just think hydropower is one of the ways that we could potentially look at um, that might be quickly deployable and that there's already been a lot of research into that we've been doing for a really long time. So I just think it's an option that we should maybe consider not writing off just yet. Um, because I think that it's in a lot of cases, at least in the southeast, it seems like dams are kind of like a net neutral effect on the ecology that they exist within. It doesn't seem like they're doing a great deal to destroy them or to improve them. You know, it's like it improves its use for human use, and like I said, it increases aquatic habitat just objectively. Um, but it also decreases a little bit of terrestrial habitat. So that's why I'm saying it's not a net benefit. It's like probably like a net neutral sort of thing, at least for the examples I can think of, which have um, like they are not trickling downstream. You know what I mean? It's like a massive amount of water that's moving out of these rivers. And I think the best way I could think of to illustrate this is by pointing out the fact that the um, the dam I usually use as an example for what I would love to see done with hydropower, Pickwick Lake and Pickwick Dam, has two locks in it for transporting barges, which means that the the river below the dam has to be deep and wide enough to allow barges easy access. And not only that, but to be deep and wide enough to allow multiple barges easy access. So, like, you know, easier than me kind of trying to describe the depth and girth of it would be just using that as an example. It's a river that at both sides of the dam is capable of being used for transportation, for marine transportation. So it's not like it's drying out the area downstream from it. Um, and really, I don't even think like in the southeast, which is where I think a lot of these like hydropower ideas could come in handy, the southeast and the northeast. Um, there's not really a huge danger of drying out things anyway, because like especially if you're talking about areas near river valleys or yeah, no, near river valleys, like river embankments, areas where these big rivers exist, um, flooding has always been an issue on those riverbeds, and it's always been um, something you've had to deal with and mitigate. And as a result, the water tables are usually pretty high in those places. The rainfall is pretty high across the entirety of the Northeast and the Southeast. Um, I just don't see a whole lot of danger of us drying out because we put up some low impact hydropower. And that's the other thing is like my big thing is like I think that we should talk about maybe preserving some of the dams that exist within America's current infrastructure, right? My idea is that to take the dams we already have in America's, like the TVA and stuff like that, ones that work, that aren't impeding salmon spawning, that aren't impeding migratory fish in a major way, maybe consider keeping those until we can replace everything with solar and replace everything with wind. If we can get all of our power needs from those two, then I think it's a good idea probably to at least talk about decommissioning the hydropower aspects of those dams. Honestly, like a lot of them, people would say like we want to dismantle them. I guess I'm fine with that in theory, but it it does seem kind of strange to do something that radically transforms the landscape again after radically transforming the landscape. It's like it I don't know, maybe I'm just stupid on this. Maybe someone can explain to me why there's like why this makes sense. But here's the problem I have with it, right? It feels a little bit like the argument that pro death penalty people make when they uh, try to imply that, you know, killing someone who kills someone else does some kind of justice. It's like two wrongs don't make a right. It seems like a violation of that very basic principle. Um, it's like if we've already got the dam, it's already there. There's not anything we can do about it except destroy it. And destroying it is going to radically change the landscape again. Which one do you do? You know, like especially if everything is already like readapted. Like nature is a very quick like adapter to this sort of thing. You know what I mean? Like when nature gets established in a certain way, it's there, right? And if you radically transform it, yeah, it'll spring back, but it's going to need more time to spring back. Whereas if you, leave it as it is and incorporate technology to allow migrant species to get up and down the dams that do exist on riverways that have migrant species, if you invest in technology that makes them safer for fish populations in general, because like sometimes the areas near the dam aren't necessarily the safest place for fish, at least on the intake side, for obvious reasons. um, there are improvements that could be made 100%. But my argument has never been, at least I don't think my argument was ever build more dams. It was preserve some of the dams we have now because they're actually a genuinely good model for how we could generate massive levels of electricity because we can use the power of water. So keep them around, um, not only because they produce, good, clean power, but also because they're a good model for sustainable energy. And work on low impact hydropower. So there are hydropower concepts that rely on quick moving rivers to simply turn simple paddle wheels that are hooked up to a flywheel system that kind of harnesses that power and turns it into something that's a regular RPM and runs at a reliable rate, right? And turns that into power. And sure, one of those isn't going to power like a whole house by itself, even. But if you set up a bunch of those power stations all along the course of the river and you build them the right way, where they're only using just a little bit of the water in every section that they exist within to push their paddle wheels forward, then you've got no danger to interruption of the flow of the river. You've got constant power being generated by these places. And there's, like, I can't see how that would be a negative, right? Like, as long as you, God damn it, cat. As long as you allow the areas that this low impact hydropower exists within to remain pretty natural, right? So obviously, you probably have to do this in areas where you've kind of already got a little bit of development going up alongside a river, even if it's just a gravel road and some campsites. But alternatively, you just, like you put an inconspicuous fucking logging road down the stream and put little turnouts everywhere. You have to have one of these substations, or I'm sorry, one of these generation stations, and connect it all with high voltage wires, send it down to the city, and away it goes, Low impact hydropower, I really don't see the argument against it. God damn, my nose is itchy today. Hamster wheel generator in the prisons, run for time off your sentence. People are retarded. Dude, people are fucking retarded. Either you're retarded or you're 12, bro. Bro, blue and white does not mean prison. In this case, it means unfinished drywall. Ah, man, this is why I don't read the chat sometimes, because I know if I don't see at least one of those blue wrenches in here, dude, this fucking chat ain't gonna be worth reading. It's just a fucking sea of idiocy in here tonight and every other night. Would you party with P. Diddy? P. Diddy jokes 3 weeks after fucking the Diddy incident. Bro, will it ever not be funny to you? Bro, the meme is dead. It died. I'm sorry. 3 weeks ago called. They want their joke back. Man, I gotta... Dude, look at these fucking skibbities having a whole ass fucking side conversation in my chat earlier. Ay vey. This is what I mean. There's just nothing. It's just sometimes these chats are great. Sometimes these are really fun and we have an intelligent conversation and I don't have to carry all the weight of it. Other times you just can't fucking you can't it's like you can't shake people into being intelligent people sometimes. Sad, truly sad. I tried to do a live stream, but the people were too stupid. They didn't understand my brilliance. They didn't understand. The people didn't understand. They didn't like my jokes. They tried to shoot me for my jokes. Lord have mercy. Wee! Anyway, I recognize that dams need to go away in certain places. I know that they're a problem. Like, for example, the Colorado River is so heavily dammed and so heavily utilized that none of its water actually ever manages to reach the ocean. It was not always this way. Now, it would occasionally dry up in a really dry year because it is a river that goes through a desert. The same thing would happen to the Rio Grande. But the rate of drying that those rivers experience now is something else. You know what I mean? It's not just the natural drying of a river in really dry years. It's the um, the complete redistribution of that river water into other systems, right? So I recognize that water policy has to change and dam policy has to change in those spots. Although I would still say, although I guess, I was gonna say, right, like, Lake Mead, what do you do about Lake Mead, right? What do you do about the Hoover Dam? Um, but, I think about it, like, Nevada is a huge state. There's already some big solar collection centers that are around Vegas that help to feed its power. So I guess at this point, you could dismantle the Hoover Dam. Although my question has always been with this kind of thing, like, how the fuck would you dismantle a dam safely, right? Because like part of the problem with people who blow up dams for fun and pleasure or for activism, more like part of the problem with that is that you usually end up causing flooding downstream. Most of the time when a dam breaks, it ends up sending a bunch of water into places that used to have water or that would used to have water given enough water, that people have now built houses and businesses in. And so you end up flooding a bunch of people out, right? So it seems like the safest option and the cheapest option is definitely not just like throwing a grenade at the bottom of the dam and letting it all collapse. That seems like it's probably not the right way to proceed, right? So, like, what would be the plan if we started to dismantle dams en masse? Like, how do they do it? And I'm starting to realize, like, this is one of those areas that I'm really interested in, but that I haven't learned a lot about in terms of this specific area. I don't really know how a dam is decommissioned. I know how hydropower is decommissioned in an old dam that is, being abandoned essentially, but I've never read anything about the actual like decommissioning process for a dam. But I know that it has to happen because there's a spot near the little house I grew up in where my grandparents used to tell me all the time that it used to be a dam over the river. It used to be a little, uh, yeah, like a tiny little dam. It wasn't much to look at, but it was like 15 feet high and created a weird little lake and more of a creek back there than it normally would have. And apparently it got demolished at some point, right? So at some point that dam had to be decommissioned. The evidence of its existence is still in the creek bed, and it does kind of look like they just blasted it up out of there. So I wonder, like sincerely, how do they do it? Dynamite? Okay, like, are you being for real though? Like, do they really use dynamite to decommission old dams? And does the plan change at all depending on the volume of water that's planned to be released? Like, is that really what they do? Because I mean, I know that would work, but it just seems like it would flood out a lot of people. It just seems like it would cause a lot of property damage. And this society tends to look down upon that sort of thing. I don't know. I don't know either, but I damn if I ain't curious. I never did scroll up. Oh yeah, I did, dude. I scrolled up and that's when I saw the skibbities fucking talking to each other in my fucking chat. Dude, I love your name, Dabbing Freddy. I also love the fact that you do the little like colon 3 face. I love that. Back, forth, back, forth, back, forth, back, forth, back, forth. Folks like Paul don't understand what it means to be American. It's not about a principled stand. That ain't how we do it in this fair land. Left us are all losers. That's all they do is lose. And if you want to be a winner, well, it's time for you to choose. So vote for Kamala. It's what you gotta do. Vote for Kamala. For the red, the white, and the blue. Vote for Kamala. She's the only one that can see what this great nation could be if we all just give in to our original sin. Let go of the burden of what has been. Alright, I like the vid. Well, thanks. Go ahead and like and subscribe so you can catch more of these bitches. Because I do them all the time, and we are growing! Growing all the time. I'll be glad when my foot isn't killing me so much, because I would really like to do some, like, fun stuff with you guys on stream. Like, dude, this outbuilding I'm sitting in, I kind of want to talk to. So I live on a family farm, and so it's like a multi-generational housing sort of situation, right? And decisions sort of like get made at a family level. So I wouldn't want to do it without talking to anybody, but I kind of want to like, especially if the channel keeps growing, you know, and I keep liking it, and I keep I'm about to go pick up another monitor to replace the old one that I had for my computer, and when I do that, I'm hoping to start getting into regular streaming again. So I'll be doing these, but I'll also be doing like regular streams where I'm um, covering topics that interest me, and I can like bring things up and show you guys, and maybe have like better sound and shit going on too. Who knows? But long story short, um, I kind of think more and more about like talking to everybody and being like, what's realistically, what would be the problem with fixing this outbuilding up, finishing the bathroom in it, making it so that, you know, there, number one, there's like an extra bathroom on the property. That's always fucking handy, you know. But number two, it um if we finished the inside out in here, maybe turned it into a studio, like that could provide so much more utility for this building than it's currently serving, and it could be like a really cool workspace, honestly. Like, there's some fucking improvements that would have to be made for sure. Like, um, if I chose to do it, one of the things I would definitely do is like cover the entire side, like every fucking square inch of the outside, and honestly, probably like figure out a cage for the underpinning too. I don't even know. I would have to fucking panel it up with OSB though. I would have to panel it the fuck up with OSB, probably like half-inch sheets, because there's a train like 20 feet away from where I'm sitting right now. There's a train track, and it's a pretty major track. It we get about 15 to 20 trains a day, so, or I don't know if it's actually that many, but it feels like that fucking many. So I would have to cover out the whole outside with some thick ass sheeting, some thick ass wood sheeting. And then I'd probably do wood siding on top of that, and then finish up all the drywall in here, insulate the rooms real good, which most of that's already done. And I think it would be pretty fucking cozy in here. Replace that one window with a double paned window that's even better soundproofing. And then I think I could sit in here and like it would be a great fucking combination workspace, right? So I could do streams in here whenever I want, you know what I mean? Like whenever that's pleasing to the eye. But if like let's say my partner wanted to do because they really want to like start college soon, And so let's say that they want like a quiet place to do their homework and shit, in a place where they're not going to be interrupted by the train sound, and where they can kind of like set their own vibe. They can come in here, and they've got access to a bathroom and everything. They literally have no reason to go back out to the house until they're done. And same thing with anybody who wanted to get some work done in here. It could be like a cool combination workspace, and I could put some stuff in here to make it an even better combination workspace, like a fucking small kitchen. Like I could put a kitchenette in here, and that would be so fucking cool. Like the ability to like cook for you guys, um, and like do cooking videos, and like a kitchen that's made to look camera friendly, right? And a kitchen that's in a spot that's conveniently set up with all of your other like computer shit, and that's got a bathroom and everything real close at hand. It would just be nice to have access to that sort of thing. Now the question at that point would be, how do I squeeze that into the minimum amount of space? I think the answer to that question would end up being a counter space somewhere over here with like one of those flat top like glass stovetop things. um I hate those things because you can only use certain pans with them, and I don't think you can use cast iron with them, so I can't do that. I refuse, won't do it. What's another one? What's another option? I feel like I've seen countertop regular electric burner stoves that just didn't have an oven thing with it. That were just like meant to set on the countertop, and they like had a divot into it to catch the heat and like distribute it, but you know what I mean? Like it didn't have the whole oven thing and shit. Because I feel like I've got to get like, if I were to do this, right? If I were to do this idea, I would have to have some sort of small form factor stove to work with. Because if I put like a whole ass stove unit in here, it's gonna be fucking like, the space considerations on that would be retarded. I don't know. Something I'll have to think about for sure. Because I think that would be really fun and really cool. But I don't know how practical it is. Of course, then again, our main house, like the house that I actually live in, is going through renovations and repairs right now. And one of the things in there is this old ass gas stove from like the 1950s. And it is actually pretty narrow, all things considered. Um, it would fit in here really nicely. Because it's not that, it doesn't come out that far. But the only problem with it is that the oven doesn't work, so I would have to either repair it myself or pay someone to repair it to get it fully functional and fully working. But it's in pretty fucking good shape, and I really love it. I mean, like right now we're literally just using it as part of the countertop because, you know, like not having an oven was pretty inconvenient. So, but yeah, bro. Most dams that are destroyed are heavily dried, so probably not too much flooding, and why they want the dam to be removed. Yeah, okay, that makes a lot more sense. And I've always said that I am completely for the dismantling of dams that contribute to river drying. But I also have to say that in a lot of cases, my understanding is that it's not the fucking dam that made the river dry up, it's the fucking usage of the water that the dam allowed, right? Which I guess is the dam causing the river to dry up, but it's an indirect cause, right? It's not like the dam itself, like its presence there magically made the river dry up rather than fill up, because at one point it did fill up and then it got used so heavily that it has since dried out. And I do agree with that. Like I do agree with dismantling dams that have been used in this manner. Um, but I also like recommend people like I think this country really needs to really fucking start. This country needs to stop seeing itself as a collection of tiny little states, and its people need to stop seeing themselves as members of these tiny little states and competing with each other. We need to start marshaling our strength nationally, right? Um, because right now there are a fucking ton of water intensive crops that are grown in California that could be grown in Louisiana, that could be grown in Mississippi, that could be grown in parts of Texas, that could be grown in Florida. A lot of them, hell, a lot of them are grown in Florida already. And it would just require, like, honestly, it would just require investments into like unconventional methods of farming. Like, you can't farm in a lot of areas of Florida with like Florida soil because it's just too sandy in a lot of spots, at least according to my dad. So you would have to look into um, yeah, you'd have to look into some sort of like state composting project that fills in, that makes some beds to grow some of these cash crops that you would move from California to Florida, and like basically compost enough soil to fill up these areas with good soil that will work for these seedlings. And you'd have to keep that shit up. And you'd have to, be a technological transition, but I'm confident that this country could do it. The only way that happens is if the states are made to get along with each other. And I recognize that it's mainly the South that doesn't want to get along with everybody else. I know. Listen, I'm for Reconstruction too. As a Southerner, I'm ready for us to be taken over and for the federal government to get the slaveholders out of office and the fucking descendants thereof. You know what I mean? Like, fuck them all, get rid of them. But, um, that said, the issue is what it is. It's still got the same solution, right? The solution is having the federal government, step in between these states and saying, like, okay, so we've got water problems in the West Coast, right? We've got too much water in the Southeast. We've got um, a lot of like rural and agricultural sort of land still in the Southeast. So because we've got all that and we've got this climate that works for some of this stuff, why don't we take as much of this stuff to Florida and the Gulf Coast as we can? Why don't we make this an East Coast and a Gulf Coast production, right? And instead, down here, we're going to grow, like in the West Coast states, like now we're going to grow things that are way less water intensive, which is actually going to take me a second to think of like some examples. Like, honestly, almonds are the thing that I think of as being water intensive. And so it's easy to think of a lot of things that are less water intensive than a fucking almond. You know what I mean? Like walnuts are less water intensive than a fucking almond. Um, Corn, soybeans, you know what I mean? Like any of these things would be less water intensive and would grow just as well. Um, Tomatoes, I think, actually do need quite a bit of water. Peppers, though, peppers grow excellently in a lot of places that don't get a whole lot of rainfall. Um, Beans can survive quite like quite a fucking quite a nifty drought. Um, I learned this year because of our strawberry bed that there are varieties of strawberries that are incredibly resistant to drought. So that's cool. And Jay Shri Ramji. I have no idea what you said, but I hope I pronounced it correctly. Anyway, there are all kinds of crops that could be grown in California that would be less water intensive than the ones that are grown there now. And the same can be true of, well, the opposite rather can be said for places in the South, right? There's things that we grow down here that like basically a lot of the South's farming has remained the same for, you know, 100 years or something. in some cases, longer in a lot of cases, honestly. Like, my family has been farming the same exact fucking set of vegetables. This is the fucking first year that we as a family have expanded that in something like 200 years. Literally. We've been growing the same fucking shit. And I think that sort of like strict adherence to traditionalism kind of pervades a lot of Southern culture. And I think what it means is that people are really reluctant to try these other currently untested crops. They, they don't want to plant an almond orchard because they've never grown almonds before. They don't know how they'll do. They don't want to lose their ass. But I bet you that if there's almonds growing in California, there are places that almonds would grow on the Gulf Coast. Um, because if what they need is lots of water, lots of heat, lots of humidity, we got that. We got basically nothing but that, honestly. Um, we can grow anything down here. That's what gets me, is that you can find a climate for just about anything down here. Um, Maybe there's some cold weather stuff that you can't do as well on down here, but like when it comes to like trying to, what the fuck, dude, what the fuck? My shed just made a weird noise. Anyway, um, well, now I'm thoroughly freaked out. Dude, I gotta fucking see what the fuck this is. I can't see nothing, but at this point, I think I'm better off that I don't see anything. Please, god damn it, I was gonna sit down there. Motherfucker. You You sit in your spot. Oh boy. I think I'm going to go ahead and get off of here. I'm tired. Long story short, take down dams that suck, leave dams that are innocuous or only suck a little bit until we can get rid of coal and gasoline, and then knock down the dams. I'm fine with that.